Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the grand finale of the summer Dine and Learn. We've been learning Hilchos Nedarim, except for one break, and I thought we'd finish up with our discussion of Minhagim. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. We talked about changing Minhagim, and Mr. Shem, tonight we'll talk about changing the Nusach of the Tefillah, when you're allowed to and when a shul is allowed to. There are three main nuschos of Tefillah. There's Ashkenaz, there's Sfard, and there's what we now call Edot Mizrach, which is Mediterranean and farther east than that. Really North Africa and the Middle East. And within those Nusach families, there are differences we even see in our Sidurim, our Scroll Sidurim. Some people say Be'emes Nishonanu, some people say Be'emes Uvesamim Nishonanu, small differences like that. Even among Hasidim, there was a big fight between two Rebbes who were very close to each other, whether on Musaf, Kedusha, on Shabbos, should it be Keser or not. Those were the Keser battles. So there are differences within each Nusach, but generally speaking, those are minor compared to the differences between each family. And before we even discuss about changing, we should just say all of them are good. The Arizal says that there are 12 paths to Shemayim, one for each Shevet. So we don't know which Shevet we're from or which Shevet each Nusach accords to. But we know that they're all good, so don't worry too much about changing your Nusach. Surprisingly, now where would you think, based on what we've discussed over the past few weeks, would be the first major discussion of changing a Nusach Tefillah? It should be in the years leading up to the expulsion from Spain, or the years right after it, when all these different communities got mixed up in places like Constantinople and Amsterdam. But really all discussions of Nusach Tefillah, and there are many, Baruch Hashem, there are many, begin with the Chasam Sofer. Chasam Sofer was asked, it was already after quite a while, quite a few decades after Hasidus really got started and got going, and he was asked about Nusach, this whole thing called Nusach Sfard. And the Chasam Sofer was a very interesting character, one of the Gedolei Olam of all times. He was, pardon the term, he was a Yeki. He grew up in Frankfurt, and he moved to Pressburg, where he was the Rav and the Rosh Yeshiva in Hungary. So people asked him, which Nusach should we daven, or change it by changing davening, or I'm in a shul which is Nusach Sfard and I daven Nusach Ashkenaz. What should I do? And he's the German. He daven literally Nusach Ashkenaz. He was Ashkenaz, but he had much more to say about that. What he says, I think, typifies what we would call, mislabeled today, the Litvish approach to Hasidic minhagim and Kabbalah type minhagim. And what's most interesting is the Chasam Sofer was no slouch when it comes to Kabbalah. He knew his Kabbalah. His two Rebbes, his two main Rebbeim, were Rav Nosson Adler, who was a Makobel, and the Haflah, Rav Pinchas Alevi, the Haflah, who was also Makobel. And both of whom, as we'll see soon, both daven Nusach Sfard. So the Chasam Sofer says a lot of many important points in his two tshuvas on the subject, the two main tshuvas on the subject. These are in Or Chaim, Simanim Tezvav and Tezayin. I just want to point out a few of them. First of all, he said the Arizal added special kavanos to Sephardic, what we call Edot Mizrach Tefillah. Now that's debatable historically, and the people who wrote after him all picked up on this. But his most important point is that Nusach Sfard is fabulous al pi Kabbalah, and that's what the Arizal added, and that's why people who understand Kabbalah want to daven Nusach Sfard, or what the Lubavitch call Nusach Ari, because it's based on the Ari's kavanos. However, the Chasam Sofer says you could do the same for Nusach Ashkenaz. And the truth is, he doesn't quote this, but Rabbi Yaakov Emden did. Rabbi Yaakov Emden published a commentary on the Siddur called Beis Yaakov, and the reason he wrote it, he says, is to show that don't be fooled by these Hasidim, he says, that only Nusach Sfard is great al pi Kabbalah, even Nusach Ashkenaz is. And his whole commentary is to show that Nusach Ashkenaz works well al pi Kabbalah, which is ironic, because nowadays they publish his commentary on their Siddur that is Nusach Sfard. I'm sure he's rolling over on his grave on that. Because it's such a fabulous commentary. So that's one point. Another point is, the Arizal himself said, we have this in Kabbalah Svarim, the Arizal himself said, don't change the Nusach of your Tefillah. So the Chasam Sofer says, your parents daven Nusach Ashkenaz, your grandparents daven Nusach Ashkenaz, you should too. And what I'm saying now is Ashkenaz focused, centered. We'll switch momentarily. But the Chasam Sofer says a few other interesting things, and I'm being mindful of the time and not saying too much. So how could his two Rebbeim change from Nusach Ashkenaz to Nusach Sfarad? He says because they understood their Arizal's Kavanos. The only people who can or who should change their Nuschos are people who understand what the difference is. If you understand and you gain so much from davening Nusach Sfarad, so you should change. Which brings up an interesting point, because we've said before, over the past few weeks, that breaking a neder violates an Issa D'Oraisa or D'Rabbanan, depending on the case, and is also breaking a minhag. Also has you're not following your al titosh Torah simecha. As a pasuk in Ksuvim, they have to follow the Torah of your ancestors. So breaking a minhag is not only breaking a neder, but also not following Torah simecha. And this whole discussion, people only talk about Torah simecha. Nobody talks about a neder. So I think the reason is, if anyone has a better suggestion, I'm open. I think the reason is because no matter what you're davening, you're still fulfilling the neder of tefillah. So whichever you want to daven this way, you want to daven that way, it doesn't qualify as a neder. That only qualifies as Torah simecha, as following the ways of your ancestors. But what we see is al titosh Torah simecha can be overridden. It's not a din deraisa, it's not even a din derabanan, so it can be overridden by other concerns. So says the Chasam Sofer, if you understand the kavanos of their Rizal, what Nusach Sfarad is really getting at in its core, then that overrides al titosh Torah simecha. Two other things which will blow you away. You would not have. I can't say this. Chasam Sofer said this. Number one, he says people quoted him the Tanya. Well, real name is Likutei Amarim, right from the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Balatanya says that the Nusach Hari is the Nusach HaKolo. We said there are 12 different Nuschos, one for each Shevet. If you don't know which Shevet you're from, anyone here a Cohen or a Levi? Yeah, we have a Cohen. He knows what Shevet he's from. I don't. The rest of us don't. So if you don't know what Shevet you're from, says the Tanya, you daven in Nusach Hari, and that's for all the Shvatim. So therefore, Nusach Hari is better. So the Chasam Sofer says, I've never seen the Sefer Likutei Amarim. I don't know what it is. Besides which, I don't care. Because the Ramban said, all we have to believe, all we're required to believe is what's in the Talmud, Bavli, Yerushalmi, the Midrashim, Tanakh, it doesn't say Tanakh, but that's given. That's what we have to believe. Anything else, anything comes after that, up to you. Want to believe? Good. You don't want to believe? That's the Chasam Sofer said that. And the Likutei Amarim was written in, I think, the early 1800s by the Balatanya. So he said, I don't have to believe what's in the Likutei Amarim. I've never seen the Sefer before in my life. Wow. Okay, number one. Number two, working on the assumption that the Arizal took what the Sfardim daven and he changed it al pi Kabbalah. He says, who says I have to follow what the Sfardim do? The Rush. Who was the Rush? The Rush was from Germany. He moved to Spain to avoid persecution. I thought he was going to be kidnapped like his Rebbe, the Maharam. So he moved to Spain. The Rush writes in a tshuva, I don't know what these Sfardim do. I don't follow them in Hagim. I come from Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz, we have a Masorah, back to the Chachmei HaTalmud, back to the Geonim. We know what we do follows Masorah. These Sfardim, I don't know what they're doing. They don't seem to have a Masorah. Wow, those are fighting words. Usually it's the other way around. The Sfardim say, we're from Iraq, we're from Persia, we were here 4,000 years ago, from the times of the Churban of the first Bayis. We have a Masorah. You Ashkenazim, you're from Poland. Poland, so 1,000 years ago was a Masorah from Poland. So Rush says, no, the Masorah of Ashkenaz goes all the way back. A lot to talk about there, but we don't have the time. So that's the Chasam Sofer. He's stark Ashkenaz. So not long after he published that, the Divrei Chaim, the Sanzer Rav, published a tshuva. Divrei Chaim was a Gaon. He published a tshuva, point by point, disagreeing with the Chasam Sofer, saying, no, Nusach Sfarad is better. And so on and so on. So the Maharam Shik, who was a Chasam Sofer's Talmud, wrote a tshuva, again, disagreeing with the Divrei Chaim and supporting his Rebbe. And so on, and back and forth, and back and forth. The Minchas Elazar, he wrote tshuvas on the subject. He was a Munkatcher Rebbe, so as you can guess, he supports Nusach Sfarad. So we'll just discuss briefly what the Minchas Elazar says. He says, first of all, the Rizal says you're not allowed to change your Nusach. He meant if you know your Shevet and you know your Nusach, you have to keep it. Most of us don't know our Shevet, don't know our Nusach, so therefore it's better to daven Nusach Hari, which is for everyone. The Minchas Elazar points out that if you learn Kabbalah, which you didn't know, and you learn something new, a new din, then you should follow that. That's the reason to change your minhag. And he has proof. He says in Spain, we know the Beis Yosef says in Spain they used to wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed. When the Zohar was published, the Zohar says not to wear in Chol HaMoed. They changed their minhag and they stopped wearing tefillin on Chol HaMoed because of the Zohar. So he says, you see, you learned something from Kabbalah, so you could change your minhag to fit that new learning. He agrees though. The Minchas Elazar agrees with the Chasam Sofer like this. Nusach Ari, Nusach Svard was only intended for the people who understood Kabbalah, the Rebbes, and the top Hasidim. They're the ones who are supposed to daven Nusach Svard, no one else. This is a Hasidic Rebbe saying it. However, people change. They want to be like the Rebbe. And once they change, you have to follow what your parents taught you, which is Nusach Svard, so you cannot change to Nusach Ashkenaz. Okay, with that background, let's talk about how you, personally, I'm not passing for you, that's the Rav. The Rav is back. You could ask him. But how any one of us can change our Nusach if we want to. Number one, the easiest way is to get on a plane and move to Iran. If you move to Iran and you survive the move, you are obligated to follow all the minhagim of Iran. I think there's still a few Jews left, so there's a community. So you move to that community, you move to Baghdad, Iraq. You follow those minhagim. I don't recommend it. That's one way to do it. Shaila asked to various Gedolim over the past 50, 75 years, very common, you go to yeshiva that is a different nusach. So elementary school, you learn how to daven from the yeshiva, maybe your parents teach you a different one at home, they're a little subversive. You go to Beis Medrash, you get very into it, you're there 5, 10 years. At what point are you allowed, if at all, to change your nusach? So that's Rav Chaim Kanievsky, he says never. That's Rav Hankin says, if you want to, sure, no problem. And then there's a third position of Shlomo Zalman. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says you can only switch if not switching makes it difficult for you to get into the yeshiva. The learning of Torah, if it helps your learning, you acclimate better, you get better with the learning, with the people, with the chevra, so then you can. So what's his svara? His svara is, I believe, as follows. We said the reason you're not allowed to change your nusach is because of al titosh torasi mecha, but certain things override it. One of the things that overrides it is you're learning. If it improves your learning to daven the nusach of your yeshiva, so then it says Rav Shlomo Zalman, change. I only saw one person say this, but it makes so much sense, and I'll explain to you why I think it makes sense. And that's if it improves your kavanah. If it improves your kavanah, you could change your nusach. I mean, that makes sense. That just makes plain sense to me. So I saw that in Rav Eliezer Melamed. He's a contemporary in Eretz Yisrael. He has a different proof, but I think his proof is very simple. Why did Rav Nosson Adler and the Haflah change from Nusach Ashkenaz to Nusach Sfard? So said the Chasam Sofer because they understood the kavanos of the Arizal. So improving your kavanah, and in that case, it was improving their kavanah to a huge level. But whatever it is, improving your kavanah, that overrides al titosh tarasi mecha. So if you're in a yeshiva or you're in a shul, and if you daven your own nusach, you'll get messed up. If you daven the nusach of the shul or the yeshiva, you'll be able to concentrate better and you'll have more kavanah. So then, at least according to Rav Eliezer Melamed, you're allowed to change. And let's just, in full partisan mode, let's talk about what other poskim say. So the Minchas Elazar and others like him say specifically, if you daven Nusach Ashkenaz, you're more than welcome to change to Nusach Svard. He says that. Why? Because Nusach Svard, he says, is for all the Shvatim, and no matter which Shevet you're from one of the Shvatim, so therefore Nusach Hari is for you. Nusach Svard. He's not Nusach Hari, he wasn't Lubavitcher, but the Nusach Svard is for you. Rav Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva where he says the exact opposite. He says, this is in Chelek Beis of Orach Chaim, Siman Chav Daled. He says, even if you're from a Hasidic family, 2 generations ago, 3 generations ago, however many generations ago, they daven Nusach Sfard, unless you're from the Middle East or Mediterranean area. So if that's the case, your minhag, your real minhag, is Nusach Ashkenaz. So he encourages people, change back to Nusach Ashkenaz, which is your true minhag. So that's 2. It depends on who you ask your shayla to, you'll get a different answer. If you go to a Litvish Rav, he'll say Nusach Ashkenaz. You go to a Chassidish Rav, he'll say Nusach Sfard. So, depending on who you ask, you can already know what the answer will be if you ask that shayla. So let's talk about, for a few minutes, shul. What could a shul do? So the Chok Yaakov discusses a very interesting shayla that came up in Vienna. Vienna, they had a minhag not to eat a very specific food. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand the Yiddish. But the Vienna entire community left. I don't know the situation, whether it was some sort of a pogrom or it was bad news for them, or there was just a better economic situation somewhere else. There were no Jews left in Vienna. A new community came in from Germany. They settled in Vienna. And I assume that's the community we know now. That's essentially a German community. This was, he doesn't say the year, before the 1700s. So I don't know when. So he said there's a totally new community from Germany. Their minhag was they're allowed to eat that food. So he said since there was no one left from the original community, new minhag is good. Eat away as much as you want. Have fun. So that situation is when there's no one left from the original community. So Rav Moshe Feinstein was asked about a shul. Can it change? Is nusach tefillah? It was nusach Ashkenaz, and then a new bunch of people moved in to be nusach Sfard. Can the shul change to nusach Sfard? Now we already said he wasn't so keen on nusach Sfard, but he says he doesn't go in that direction in this tshuva. He says separately. He quotes his Chok Yaakov, where nobody was left. He says you don't have to go that far that nobody's left. He says mistaber she'asa l'shanos minhagei hamakom. It seems to me that it's also to change the minhag of the place. Kevan she'ika sham gam harbe me'elu de nusach Ashkenaz. There's still a lot of people who daven nusach Ashkenaz, the original nusach. Av shehem miyot, even though they're minority. Aval im yesham adayin harbe mehem mashma sorry, Sikos Chok Yaakov says if nobody's left, you can change the minhag. But if there's still a lot of them left, mashma sheyesh din haminhag al hamakom. No, the minhag hamakom still applies. V'achadashim shabo lakan yesh lahem linhag keminhagim shehunagu sham. No, and the people who come, they have to follow the old minhag. I don't think he's saying you have to change the nusach. He davened privately, but at least publicly, you have to follow the old minhag. So he seems to say that. So there are two situations here. Nobody's left, and there's still quite a few left. So in between that, when do you say? He doesn't seem to say you need nobody left. So what's the few? What's not enough? What's enough that there's barely any? Only one guy left who's an old crank sitting in the corner. Then you could change the minhag. He doesn't seem to indicate what's required. I think that what I've heard is 20%. I don't know where that comes from, but that seems to make sense to me. That's not so many. So it is possible to change the minhag of the nusach of a shul, as long as there aren't too many people left who object to it. Now let me just add one thing which I found fascinating. I found a lot of the makoros for this in a sefer which you would not have expected. It's called Yom Tov Sheni Hilchos. Had nothing to do with tefillah whatsoever. So why does he talk about changing minhagim and changing the nusach? Because Yom Tov Sheni is all about your minhag. If you're from Eretz Yisrael, if you're from Chutz La'aretz, where you go, and he has most of the book is about the details of you're in the airport, you're in this place, you're in that place, you're in a lot, but you come from a lot, you're going to Yerushalayim. So then he adds a chapter at the end, just in general, about changing your minhag and when you're able to, and when the minhag hamakom changes. So here he is Litvish. It's by Yerachmiel Fried of Dallas. I think he's a Rosh Kollel in Dallas. So he just says, listen to this. Again, it depends on who you ask. You get a different answer. Mi shehorov me'adas chasidim. If your parents are Chasidim, Hamispalim b'nusach Sfard, they come from a Hasidic background, they daven b'nusach Sfard, Rashai l'shanos be'ofen kavua, you can definitely change permanently your nusach, or lispala b'nusach Ashkenaz. And only the footnote does he point out that not everybody agrees, and really if you ask a Hasidic Rav, a Hasidic posek, they'll say the exact opposite. Because he's all Litvik. That's you have to know who you're asking. So I think we end on a good note. I just want to, as I've said weeks past, I want to thank again Moshe Holzer, really for coming, for attending. I wanted to thank everyone for attending, but Moshe for organizing it all, and for asking me to speak, and for asking everybody to come, and to making sure there was food. So shkach to Moshe. We should have many more years of Dine and Learns. Amen. Amen.